In this video, we'll create the API endpoints to store, update, and delete food records from the database. We'll start by storing a new food item. The first step is to add a new route that will accept a post request that will be handled by a method on the foods controller. So we need to create a new route that will accept a post request to foods, and it should call a method on the foods controller. And we usually call that method store. Now the second step is to go inside the foods controller and define the store method. As I said in the previous lesson, models allow us to interact with the database without writing any SQL. Instead of writing a full SQL insert statement, all we need to do is call a create method that receives an array with columns and assigned values. In our case, the call would be something like this: food create. And now we need to pass an array with all the columns we want to fill in, which will be name. And to get that value from the request, we can use the request helper, like so. And next we need to fill the rest of the values. Calories. Quantity. And unit of measurement. To check that our new endpoint works, we can use an API client like Postman to submit post requests and see if we are creating any records in the database. The foods table is empty, and if we go to Postman, we can submit a new post request. Let me quickly grab or start the server and grab the endpoint. /API foods, and we need to add the accept application JSON header. And now on the body we need to send in the form data parameters, which will be name, let's say apple, carbs 4, proteins 1, fats 0. As you can see, the order doesn't really matter. And unit of measurement, grams. And now let's send in the request. This is a mass assignment error. We're not going to talk too much about it in this video. All you need to know is that if you're always specific on what keys get passed to your model, you are safe. To disable this protection mechanism, just set the model's guarded property to an empty array. So we need to go to food and set protected guarded to an empty array. And go back and try again. And as you can see, the request returned us a new food item. And if we check the database, you can see that a new record was created in the foods table. Now, to create an endpoint that will allow us to update foods, we need to follow the same steps. So the first step is create a new route in the api.php file. This time we'll use a put request. And we also need to pass an ID so we know which food we should update. And the method we're going to call is the update method on the foods controller. Public function update, and we'll receive the food ID. The way this should work is we find the food based on the ID we get in from the API endpoint. Then we update the record and return it as a response. So we find the food using the food find or fail method. And then to update it, we use, guess what? The update method that receives an array just as the create method does. And now we should just return the food. To test this, let's go to Postman and submit a put request and try to update the apple food item we just created. So let's refresh, so it's apple, and let's try to update the name to Pierre, for example. Pierre. We'll have to change the API endpoint to 1 and the request will be put. And one problem with Laravel is that put requests cannot handle form data. So we'll need to switch this to form URL encoded. And now if we submit, we'll see that the return contains a food item named Pear. And if we refresh the database, the name was updated. And we can of course do the same with the other values. And submit again. Refresh, and the columns get updated. Also, as you might notice, the updated at has changed. Next up is the delete endpoint. Again, we need to follow the same steps. Create an API route. This time the route will be delete. And we need to pass in the ID of the food we want to delete. And the method we'll call is delete, or by convention is destroy. Doesn't really matter. Public function destroy. We get the ID from the route. And what we need to do is find the food and then delete it. So we can do food equals food find or fail ID. And to delete a record, you can just call the delete method. And let's return a response JSON. And we can send in a message. Record deleted. And we should be able to test this in Postman. So let's try it. So our ID is 1. And we need to send in a delete request to API food/1. If we press the button, we get a message, record deleted, and if we check the database, sure enough it works. That's it for now. Bye.